Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our third Thursday Common Sense Parenting Facebook Live. As always, my name is Gabby, and I am joined here with Bridget Barnes, who is our Common Sense Parenting expert. October is National Bullying Prevention Month, so today we're going to be talking through a few different topics as it pertains to preventing bullying, stopping bullying in its tracks, and educating children on what bullying looks like and the many different forms. So, if you're watching live and you have any questions for Bridget as it relates to this topic, please feel free to leave them in the comment section of this video and we can get them answered at the end. Bridget, how are you doing today?
I am great. It's a beautiful fall day here in Nebraska, so we're having a
Yes,
beautiful day today.
yes, that's great. I know the weather has been so nice. Okay, so bullying. I know it's a topic that we have talked about in the past, but it's also a topic that is ever changing, unfortunately. And there's many different trends and, instances of bullying that arise year after year. So we do have some new topics to discuss if you have watched any of our previous lives on bullying in years past. So we'll jump in right here with the first question, and that is, what are the different forms of bullying that parents should be aware of?
Well, there's lots of different forms of bullying, and that's a lot to unpack. But cyberbullying, of course, is on the top of the list. It's a form of harassment that's 24/7 online. As an aggressor, a targeter, and usually some bystanders. It can happen on different social media sites. Definitely, it's something for us to keep an eye on. Usually, if it's persons or minors, we call the aggressor an eye predator versus if it's an adult. And they do different things like creating a bash board, if you've ever heard that
Yeah,
statement. Bash boards are where they create a chat room and virtual rooms and online forums and messaging boards where they can exchange and disseminate demeaning information about the target. And that is really overwhelming when a kid is just being attacked from everybody and everywhere. There is school bullying, of course. Usually, this bullying is held inside the school and refers to one or more predators or perpetrators who do physical or social uh, shaming or victimizing of an individual. They usually can be physically aggressive or verbally aggressive. It's just repeated and habitual behavior, and it's usually live. Practical jokes. Everybody remembers Carrie, right? They can be fairly alarming, discomforting, embarrassing, harmful to the person, traumatic to the person. Mobbing is a form of bullying, right? If you've ever heard of that, is bullying of an individual or a group by a group. I'm sorry. In the context, it could be your own family members. It could be your peer group, or if you belong to a sport or something like that, where that individual is kind of mobbed by everybody there. They're the victim of the mob. And if you ever, um, been in that situation, you know how uncomfortable that can be. Just sometimes people's Thanksgivings can be that way. So
yeah,
depending on their group. Ragging or hazing, right? Ragging or hazing usually is a initiation ritual that a lot of higher education groups use to humiliate or harass people who are trying to join their group. Bullying and teaching. We don't like to think that it can appear there, but it can.
yeah,
Bullying that occurs in school environments where the teacher can be the instigator and the kids around can join into that, or the teacher can be the victim of bullying and the kids that are there can join in on bullying the teacher around.
hmm,
So there's lots of different types of bullying that a parent should be aware of. They don't have to be an expert on it, but just a little bit more aware can just help you help your child in those situations.
definitely. And of all those different types that you named, do you know
Mhm.
what would be maybe the most common? Would it be cyberbullying?
Yes, that would be the one. Ding, 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 ding. You win. Yeah.
I
Yes,
figured.
we're spending a lot
Yeah, just because
more.
it's the easiest, right? It's not face to face, so kids and adults even can be a lot more bold in that sense and saying just the craziest, meanest things because they don't have to face the person. So we do have a resource on Boys Town parenting that I would recommend all the parents check out when it comes to cyberbullying. And we do have a list of websites and apps that we would encourage your children to avoid if at all possible. So I will make sure to link those if you want to take time and review them. So, moving on to trends, what bullying trends have you seen that have been happening lately? And is there anything new in 2021 that we should take note of? Which, when we got this question, it did make me think, just as you mentioned, the children bullying the teacher, because I'm sure many parents who are watching are aware of that hit a teacher TikTok trend that I know you and I have discussed. And there, I think, was recently like a suit in Louisiana. There was a young student in Louisiana who hit her disabled teacher, and she's actually getting charges pressed. So that's one example. I know those TikTok trends get really out of hand, but I'm sure you could speak to that.
Yeah. Yeah, we just recently did that whole
Yeah.
talk on, the schools and kids, tearing up their schools, bathrooms, and things like that.
Yeah.
But yes, online is probably the trendiest. It's something that we see a lot, especially in 2021. We've been spending a lot of time indoors and online, so it's due to COVID. So this isn't abnormal for that to happen. But some research done by Pew Research Center, they surveyed about, I want to say about 2,000, no, 4,000 U.S. Americans, and they showed that roughly 4 in 10 Americans have been experiencing some online harassment, and 62% of those consider it to be a major problem.
Yeah.
95% of kids are connected to the internet. You can see that just by their hands. There's probably usually a phone in them. And
Yeah.
85% of those kids say, that they've experienced some kind of social media harassment.
Hmm.
And those numbers are too big. And I think that's the biggest trend is just the online bullying that we're seeing now. And the results of that are really kind of staggering when I was looking at some of the numbers.
Yeah.
It definitely isn't good.
No. And especially, as we talk more about cyberbullying within itself, I know with physical bullying, if someone's getting bullied on the playground, it's a lot more obvious to see the warning signs or the actual situation of bullying itself. But when it comes to bullying on the internet, what are some of the warning signs? Because I know some kids may never say anything at all to their parents about it.
Yeah, if a kid begins to be withdrawn, really moody, unlike themselves, are even acting aggressive when they weren't before. Perhaps they don't want to go to school all of a sudden. They
Hmm.
start skipping school, or their grades dip. A big two big things that you might notice is that they stop using their computer devices all of a sudden, and then they stop hanging around the friends they used to have, and they hang around this new group. And so that might be this paradigm shift where they're like being bullied by people they know or people that, they thought were their friends, and then they cut off their online device. And studies show that, kids, 24% of kids will just stop using their social media. And, they seem very depressed. The numbers are very high there. 37% of kids reporting feeling depressed due to the bullying that's going on, and 41% of them feel social anxiety. So now they're depressed about what's going on in social media, but then when they're in live situations, they have anxiety to be in those live situations
Right.
because 62% of people say that they are going to interact with that person who is bullying them online, especially kids. They're kids who they go to school with or they interact with.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's so much where a lot of it will happen after school, right? So they all get online after school and are on those forums and those chat rooms, just as you said. And then the next day they have to go and face, the person who said all the crude things before. So
Yeah.
those those statistics are not surprising really at all. Yeah.
No, it is sad, and it, like I said, it's 24/7. Unlike live bullying, that when you're at this place, if you can get away from the place where this person is, then you won't have to experience them. But internet is everywhere, and when it's so pervasive, it's on your phone, it's on your computers, on that, and you really have to teach kids of how to uh, navigate the the virtual world. It is a world in and of itself, and then how to deal with that and what you should do about it.
Yeah. I do see we do have one comment with a question, and Heather, just I see you're watching. We will make sure to answer that here at the end. So the next question is there a magic age that parents should talk to their kids about bullying? Is preschool too early for them to kind of understand, or what would you recommend?
I don't know if there's a magic age to start talking about it. I think there is, it depends on the child's exposure to the virtual world. If kids are very younger, finding themselves, are you allowing children, your child, to be on social media or to be on the internet, then you should start talking to them about the internet and about internet etiquette and cyberbullying and being able to identify it and how to report it. Uh, just it's very important to start when kids are exposed to something. If I ever were exposed to fire, I would probably talk to them about fire safety, right? And so the same thing applies here. Of course, our teenagers probably a lot more exposure just because of their ability to surf the internet and have more devices available to them. But I don't believe there is a magic age. There's different ways to talk to kids at different ages about how much exposure they're having to the internet.
Yeah, and with in-person bullying too, if your child is a preschooler and happens to see, Sally pushed Joe on the playground, and I know that pushing isn't okay, that would be a good instance where you could bring up that too, I think.
Yeah, a lot of kids, uh, well, 81% of kids who get cyberbullied say it's easier to cyberbully because 90% of them said they wouldn't report it because it's online.
Right.
Whereas if it was live, they probably would say something because they're right there, right? And so bystanders, teaching kids also about bystanders, not just bullies or aggressors and targets, but also the bystander, the people who are watching that, whether it's online or whether it's in a live situation. What do you do when this happens? What should you say? Should you react? And you must react, and your reaction gives power to that person one way or the other. If you are silent and say nothing, but you acknowledge that or recognize them or stay tuned to that, that's going to encourage them to continue to do that behavior, whether you're just standing there and watching in live situation or online.
Right.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the next question ties in with what one of our viewers is asking, all the way from California. So thank you so much for watching. And this question is, when should parents get involved, especially once kind of middle school rolls around, if there's instances of bullying, should one parent of the child who's being bullied contact the bully's parents, or what would you recommend, their level of involvement?
well, how early should parents get their school involved if they suspect bullying? Right away?
Yeah.
Right away. I think that the it's better to alert the school sooner than later and try to head off some serious issue that might occur later on. And I think it's best to discuss the problem as a community, because communities really can often get results and a lot sooner than just an individual. So I don't think it's just Johnny's problem or just this family's issue. And when my son was being bullied, I found out that that same bully had bullied a lot of other kids.
Yes.
and they were with parents individually, but it wasn't until a group of parents said okay, and not in a negative way toward the little boy, because he obviously he needed some help. But how what are we going to do as a community to support children so bullying behavior does not occur, and so we have a forum to communicate that and not just feel frustrated about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that parents, whether they should contact the other parent is whether they know the other parent. If that your child is a friend of that child, or you know them somehow, they're in the community, you're in similar communities, you sit on the school board or something like that, then feel free to approach them and share your concern and what's going on, and see if you both cannot problem solve a solution to the issue. If you don't know the parents, I would strongly suggest you use the school as a mediator, so
Yeah.
that you can be able to they can help you problem solve the situation with some parent you don't know.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Heather, hopefully that helps you. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to comment.
Yeah,
Okay.
Heather, please comment.
We love getting comments. So if you're watching, please leave us a comment. Okay. The next question is, what advice do you have for the parent of a child who is being cyberbullied specifically?
Well, using a caring approach is important to a child who's experienced cyberbullying, because it is as traumatic as any life situation, and very pervasive and relentless on that child. I just kind of use a care approach. That's just, um, C stands for communicate. Communicate with your child and find out how they're feeling. What are their thoughts? And what do they want to do to try to safeguard themselves against bullying. I think the child should be given a voice, because in this instance, they might feel like they don't have a voice, and so listen to them and talk to them first, versus just reacting and start, going to the
Right.
school and yelling at somebody. Talk to your child. Yeah. And then A stands for address the bullying. Approach the bullying, like I said, like a community, not just by yourself, but getting the school, other teachers, a psychologist, nurse, everybody on board who might be able to lend an ear and problem solve this. The R stands for restore well-being. I think a child's sense of safety, self-confidence, and feeling supported is damaged through bullying, and so trying to restore that through the school, putting posters up. Some schools do that. I've been in schools where the posters, no bullying, and kids are reading about no bullying, and there's rules about it, and people are enforcing those rules. And then E stands for encouraging kids who are getting along. And, sometimes we pay so much attention to the negative behavior,
Got a
and
positive
not the kids who are,
praise.
yeah,
Yeah.
using praise when kids are getting along, and encouraging them to do so, and supporting their positive activities, versus waiting for them to do it wrong and then us banding together to address that.
Mm-hmm.
So care, show your caring approach to bullying behavior.
Great. So, flipping to the other side, what can parents do if they find out that their child is the bully?
Yeah, yeah. Someone who is the cyberbully, like a cyberbully, might start doing stuff like they all stop using their computer when someone comes around. They seem obsessive. They have kind of obsessive behavior, like, "Oh, I don't want you to see it," and you're like, "What you doing?" "No, don't look at this." And they might be nervous or jumpy or secretive. Um, uh, Spending an excessive amount on their computer, just always on there, because they have to build those little rooms and chats and so on and so forth. And they become very angry and irate when you take that privilege away from them, because they want to be on there using their power and control and getting recognition. And it almost is like an addiction for that bully to be up there. So it's important that parents, kind of recognize that. And then the thing they should do is if you find out your kid is the bully, uh, have them acknowledge their wrongdoing by giving a formal apology. if I never have to admit I did anything wrong, if I can slough it under like, no, well, he's just being a kid. No, no, no. This is something he did. He needs to give a formal apology, not just sorry.
Right.
Okay. And yeah, reduce their power over other by reducing their livelihood online, if it's online, or if, let's say, that they're the captain of the team and they are encouraging the team to bully some kid on that team. Do they deserve to be the captain of that team? I think those kind of conversations and consequences should be put in place. Then use a little R&R. What I mean by that is recognition and restitution. So what I mean by that is just recognizing or limiting that kid's online presence, or their wherever they're doing this, they shouldn't be there. So if they're, at the, you know, they've got a table in the lunchroom that they bully people around, maybe, a teacher staying nearby to just limit their ability being reinforced by that. Or if they're online, limiting that online, or eliminating it for a while so they can get their behaviors under control. And then, of course, like I said before, make restitution. Maybe a lot of kids who are bullied, Gabby, are kids who might have a disability,
Yeah.
right? A learning disability or physical disability, or they're a part of some minority. So maybe when you go to give that personal formal apology, you give back to the charity that that child belongs to, whether it is that you donate, or you donate your time. And then learning, maybe the kid will learn something by being around people that there's no problem here and I was wrong in my assumptions about them.
That's a great idea. Yeah. And so many kids too, I think struggle with apologizing, and it's a lot of pressure on them. So making sure that they do apologize, I think, is a big step in hopefully ending that bullying cycle in its tracks. So that's great advice.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that they really struggle with apologies. So practicing that apology ahead of time is another key thing. You never want to get to the house and then your kid says something like, yeah, sorry, or whatever. Yeah. Starts making excuses why they did what they did. You're like, no, that's not what you want to be doing in front of that kid or their parents. So
No way.
practice, practice, practice long before you're there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also good to point out that, if you find out that your child is bullying others, that, it's not always a reflection on you, or you're not a horrible parent because your child has found themselves in this situation. So really go easy on yourself too. And just as Bridget said, this is something that can be worked through. So
Yeah, that kid might, we said earlier that is an issue of power, control, and recognition. If they have deficits in those areas, some therapeutic care might be needed, or just, helping them to recognize their own power and using that power for the good, right? And that recognition does not need to be that somebody has to tell you you're good for you to be good, that you can really find that in yourself. So that whole self-awareness. So I think that even that bully needs our time and attention. Obviously, they're doing this behavior and they need our help. So a consequence is not enough. We really need to kind of delve down there and dig deep to help that child kind of emerge in a more positive way.
definitely. So we do have two more questions. So if you're watching live and you have a question for Bridget, now would be the time to comment so we can get it answered in time. So we talked about the bully. Now let's talk a little bit about the bystander. So how can we talk to our kids about what it means to be a bystander?
Yeah. Well, so Gabby, when you were growing up, did your parents talk to you about being a bystander? Did
Yeah.
anybody?
And I think, person to person, or in person, I mean, it was a lot easier to understand because even, I know I'm not very old, but we didn't have social media when I was in middle school. So then it was all, on the weekends, at the mall, on the playground, this is what a bystander looks like. But
Mhm.
I would be really interested in hearing your discussion on being a bystander online. So let's say these kids are seeing these comments come through bullying this other kid. do, even if they're not engaging it or liking the comment or responding, they're still seeing it. And so they're still kind of actively participating in it as a bystander.
Mhm.
So what should they do in that situation?
Yeah, bystanders have a lot of power. They usually make about 80% of that group. The people
Really?
are standing around. Oftentimes, there won't be a fight if nobody was standing around looking at it. And with online, yeah, it's a little tricky because it's online. So we're a little away from that, and that whole veil of anonymity that is there. However, sometimes you can, when you are a community, and if you teach children to be part of a community through your own example and create and having them create communities that they are around, so their community will kind of go to that site and flood the site, right? So they flood the site where there's somebody is being bullied. So maybe your kid says they're being bullied in your community. You say, okay, this is happening. We flood the site, and then we all leave the site. We just start leaving the site. We don't, we just, you know, click off, click off. And then what happens is this trend where people are clicking off and they're like, I don't want to be left alone. We do follow. It's kind of a group think, right? We do follow like little ducks to the trend. And so everybody's clicking off that site like, this is stupid, 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 and ignoring the site. And then other people who maybe were previously on the site click off too, like, oh, this must not be good. And then they trendily follow after it. So you don't have to go up there and say anything and argue with a person that's really not there. You're just feeding them with your attention. But you go up and then you remove yourself or reduce the site by taking people with you off the site. Now the site is very negative and saying some really dangerous things. That's a legal issue. I mean, if somebody puts pictures of somebody up there that they have, that person can really put themselves in a legal bind. That they could be prosecuted and their parents could be prosecuted. So you want to alert, especially if you know the family, that this is going on and Johnny's putting pictures up and this is, might happen here, that we're going to need to do X, Y, and Z. But I would definitely let kids know in groups, when you stand with somebody, it's hard to fight against the group. And that person who's the eye predator online will back down usually to that. And if they don't, then we need to take legal action. So, yeah, that's my take on it. I don't try to be an enabler online by just watching. Some people just, I hate to say it, it's like a car crash. People are slowing down and watching the, and but they're causing more problems because they're slowing down. So if you go up to the site and you just feed that person's ego by commenting or arguing even with them, you might just continue to let that bullying behavior go on.
Hmm. Yeah, and I know it can seem like so much to keep up with parents because there are so many different apps that this can happen on. So that's why I just again want to reiterate the importance of streamlining that communication with your child so you know when they're on their phone what apps are they commonly using and how are they using them. That way you can kind of be aware of what could go on before, it's too late and then you have to backtrack. So that's great advice.
Yeah, I think if kids come in the house and it's time for certain things to happen, then maybe phones go in a basket. And once you get done with these things, having computers in places where they can be seen versus they're in my room and you're never going to see that. That kids earn the privilege to be in their room through their own appropriate behavior versus just a given that you can have that, and then you have to pull
Yeah.
it away. So earning the privilege because of your own behavior and then having some downtime away from social media and electronic devices, having family time so that you can check in with kids and how they're feeling if bullying is going on in a live situation. A lot of cyberbullying becomes live. It just doesn't stay on the internet. So, having time with kids where devices are put away and we really look them in the eye and see where they're at is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, gosh, we could talk all day, I think, about bullying. There are so many, nitty-gritty micro topics that we could go into. But, for a quick third Thursday chat for our monthly talk, I think Bridget, you covered a lot of great topics. So before we log off, I did want to ask you, during Bullying Prevention Month, what is the one most important thing that you think parents should know?
Well, learn more, read more, and get the message out to your community about the harmfulness of bullying. And you can go up to the Boys Town website. There's so much information up there on our site on bullying. So please go up there and then pass that on. Don't just you read it, but pass it on to your communities, your school, your church, your neighborhood association on stopping bullying. Our message on that. There's a little download you can do up there. Visit our Boys Town Press. There's a new book out called Building Resiliency in Youth. So sometimes when our kids have already experienced, and we saw the numbers, they've already experienced bullying, how to help them deal with that traumatic situation and go forward using resiliency. Visit our Q&A page on how parents can address bullying, and sign up to receive our series of tips on our website. And I'm sure that Gabby and her team will get that out to you guys, because I think there's some really helpful information up there for parents and for children for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right after I sign off this video, I will go ahead and make sure to link everything Bridget just mentioned. And with that, the last resource I want to throw in quick is the Boys Town National Hotline. So this is a great resource for children and teens. They can call, they can text, they can email, they can visit their website, which is yourlifeyourvoice.org. So I'll put all that in the comments section as well, and we encourage you to add the number into your child's phone today. So, Bridget.
Oh, can I plug one more? Can I plug one more thing, Gabby?
Okay.
Common Sense Parenting. Come to our online classes. Yes. Come to our online classes. Be with the other parents. Have these conversations in our virtual classrooms. It will be a great experience. So please come visit us.
Yeah. And you can join from anywhere. So, if you live in California, if you live in Nebraska, they are virtual. So I'll go ahead and link that too. But all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We hope that you learned something new and hope that you have a great and positive rest of your month. And we'll catch you next month. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye.